Hi guys, it's Matt here. Welcome. And today we have a race spotlight that is for elves. So let's get right into it. Elves. What are some of the units that are elves? Right now there are actually 9 elves. Those units are 1 cost anti-mage, 2 cost Train Protector, Furin, Luna, Puck, 3 cost Morana, Wind Ranger, and Phantom Assassin. And 4 cost is Templar Assassin. As you can see, most of the elves are in the lower cost range. That means they're perfect for the mid game. Let's go into the race synergy of elves. Elves have the race synergy called evasion. What that does is there's a fixed chance of us as elf players to dodge physical auto attacks. And with 3 elves, we have 20% evasion. With 6 elves, we have additional 20% evasion. But notice here that Dota 2 works that evasion stacks multiplicatively but with a diminishing return. So simply to say it, the additional evasion from 6 elves is actually only 20%, not 25% in the true evasion. So you actually stack up to 40% evasion with 6 elves instead of the 45% when you just add them. So in reality, 6 elves only give us 40% evasion. And with 9 elves, it says plus 30% evasion, but the true additional evasion gain is only 18%. Again, diminishing returns with evasion. So the total evasion with 9 elves is 58%. We're going to go into the race and stages. What this shows is how strong elf is in the early game, mid game, and late game. In the early game, elf is strong and weak, very much dependent on few units. This include a 2-star anti-mage, 2-star Luna, and any luck on finding druids. So what do I mean by druids? It's like finding a 2 enchantress, finding a 2-star Train Protector, and finding a 2-star Furin really fast. Because druids can really wrap up because they only need 2 to make a 2-star. So they can be weak or strong in the early game. So that's very viable. So it's very RNG based, and this also allows them to start with an open fort position. I'll touch more on open fort after. Elves are one of the strongest race in the mid game. In the mid game, they can have 6 elves, the 6 elves synergy, and with 6 elves, they really do wrap up with 40% real evasion. In the late game, I feel that elves tend to fall off simply because most of the elves are 2 cost and 3 cost units, and unless you have those units to 3-star, you'll be facing units that has more impactful casting spells. For example, a Tidehunter, Medusa, Enigma, Attackies, or even Death Prophet. Having 6 elves means we can only add 4 other units on the board, and our 6 elves is actually not contributing that much to the board other than the evasion, which do fall off very hardly in the late game. Now let's look at the counters to elves. With the latest update, with the Hunter update, now Hunters plus 3 evasion with a percentage, and that almost perfectly counter 3 Hunters counters 3 elves, and 6 Hunters would counter 6 elves. So the strongest counter for elves currently is Hunters and AoE on non-physical damage, non-physical auto attack damage lineup. And some of the example are the races are Hunters with, as you know, the Hunters with the true shots, mages, any 3 or plus mages because they amplify the damage elves take, demons with Queen of Pain, Shadow Thing, or even Doom, simply because Doom can counter Lone Druid, and the other demons does a lot of AoE damage. And other units include Beastmaster, Timberthor, Razor, and Conquer and Disruptor can also punish the elves, because when we look at the elves, almost all the elves, Anti-Mage, Luna, Puck, Train Protector, Furin, they all have very low health pool, even the Windrunner. What that means is a normal spell, a normal AoE damage that is not real physical attack auto damage will really punish the elves really hard. They can evade normal attacks, but they can't evade spells. Let's look at the possible transitions for elves. Elves can transition into assassins. This could be 3 or 6 assassins. Transition to 3 dragons because elves has Puck as a dragon. Transition to mages, again because Puck is also a mage. You can also have dragon and mages for elves. So 3 elves, 3 dragons, and 3 mages. Elves can transfer into Nagas and Hunters simply by having the Marana and simply by having the Windrunner as the Hunter. We can have the 2 Hunter plus 1 Naga, which is Medusa, and then you can add a Tide Hunter. So all of a sudden, you have the 4 Hunters and you have the 2 Nagas. Elves can consider transferring into Warlocks. This is not very often, but you can still do it by having the Venomancer, by having something like a Shadowfang, and having something like a Death Prophet. Or you can have the Warlock and Undead. So having the Shadowfang or Shadowfang, Venomancer, or you can have the Death Prophet and Necromancer. Elves consider transferring to demons as well. You can have the Anti-Mage and Terrorblade, and after that you just add on to as many demons as you want while using the Elves as tanks with evasion. Also, Elves can go into Beast. We all know that Long Druid is a crucial beast unit for the Elves, and he is as important as any of the Elves, simply because he is the key piece for the Druids. Now let's look at the key transition units for Elves. Unlike Goblins, Elves actually have a few key transition units within the Elf lineup. Those are including Anti-Mage, Furin, Enchantress, Train Protector, Long Druid, Templar Assassin, Dragon Knight and Viper, and Sand King. So I did list a few of the Elves. I feel that Anti-Mage is essential for the Elves for his ability to burn mana and for his ability to lock down the front line in the early game. Then we have the 4 Druids, which we have basically listed them. Having the Druids means Elves can be a dominating elf, Elves can be a comeback elf, and Elves can really make their presence show in the mid game. And again, I did touch on the Templar Assassin because she tends to be one of the crucial pieces for the 6 Elves. The evasion with her refraction means she's almost an immortal assassin. She becomes a super tank with refraction and evasion. The Dragons and Vipers, plus a Puck. I don't need to touch too much on the Dragons, but we all know how strong Dragons can be when you get a 2-star DK, 2-star Viper, and a 2-star Puck. The hard part is finding the 2-star DK here, which I'll touch on as well. Sand King tend to go very well with another beast. And here we have the good candidate of a 3-star Enchantress, maybe a 2-star Lone Druid. And Sand King again works well with Elves because Elves have 2 of the best assassins, being the Phantom Assassin and the Templar Assassin. Plus the Sand King, you have some of the great assassin lineup to even boost your Elf lineup even stronger in the mid game. Let's look at the item priority suggestions. What items do we give to what units? Elves tend to want the tanky items on Anti-Mage and Train Protector, and although we have Anti-Mage and Luna being both passive and non-spell casters, we do want the Mass of Madness to be on the Luna because she will do more damage for us. But if you still want to give it to the Anti-Mage, it's still not a bad choice because he can be your candidate for 3-star unit. For the damage items and the items that regenerates mana, what I tend to do is I tend to separate them into early game and late game priorities. In the early game, I tend to give damage and mana regeneration items to the Furin, to the Enchantress, to the Luna, to the Lone Druid, and to the Phantom Assassin. Notice that the Phantom Assassin and Luna does not have mana, so they don't receive mana regeneration, but just attack items. That's for the early game, of course. And the other units are named the Furin, Enchantress, and Lone Druid can take both attack and mana regeneration items. For the late game, what I tend to give the items to is the Templar Assassin, the Dusa, the Tide, and a DK, a Dragon Knight that is 2-star, simply for their ability and the damage that is AoE, or for their ability to survive in the rounds, which I find to be critical in the late game. Let's look at the positional for the Elves. How can Elf position in the early game, how can Elf position in the mid game, and how can Elf position for the late game. So, as you can see guys over here, we have a Hunter Elf. Currently we have Hunters and we have Elves, and we're positioned in the corner because we have mentioned before Hunters tend to like focus fire and Hunters like to be defensive, and so does Elves. I feel the defensive position really favors units that need to get spells cast off quickly and really favors units that are ranged to allow you to have a good focus line and a good focus fire against the enemy. Notice how I tend to have my assassins on the other corner. I tend to have my Templar assassin on this particular corner. This is because for any case enemy attacks us, the Templar assassin will distract the enemy in this corner on this corner, so pulling them away from my line of focus. So this gives me a higher chance again to be focusing the enemies one by one while having the distraction over there. So basically Templar assassin is like a little off tank for me. This is another formation for the elves. In this particular formation, I'm also considering to transfer into dragons as soon as I hit level 21. This is because I feel that elves, although we're great in dodging attacks, we're also missing a crucial part of damage dealing potential. Sometimes elves do go with beast simply because beast summon enough units to really make elves really strong in the mid game. But sometimes elves also goes with dragons. Here in this particular game, I'll be going into dragons after this round. And notice that the Templar assassin tends to be jumping around, and she is usually the last one or the first one to tank, the last one to die. In most cases, for me that is. But of course there are off times that she dies really quickly. So now particularly, what we'll be focusing on is I will be opening up more space for me to put the Dragon Knight and the Viper. Why is that? Because I want to keep my 6 elf synergy. I want to maintain my 6 elves and have the dragons on the board as well. That's why I need to be level 8. And for this particular game, being level 8 means I lose a lot of income. But as an elf player, we need to keep in mind, keeping 6 elves is what makes us strong in the mid game. And if we tend to save up in the mid game, we're going to miss our train of being super strong in the mid game. And in the late game, it's not going to be good for us. So looking over here, the positioning of the Dragon Knight is the same position where I position the hunters, and it will be the same position I'll position the 2-star Dragon Knight. And here I'm looking around to look for the arrows, but what we really want to focus is the positioning for the Dragon Knight. For elf lineup, the position for the Dragon Knight is pretty crucial if you run an elf dragon, because you really don't want your 2-star Dragon Knight to be hitting enemies where they're jumping at you. I mean, this is the elf positioning for the mid to late game, guys. As you can see, I'm still grouping up the units in a particular ball formation simply because we tend to be stronger when we focus fire, and we tend to be stronger when we share damage with the evasion. Over here I have my 2-star Templar assassin in the corner for her ability to tank and distract the enemy for us. Very soon I'll be switching into a Dragon Knight, and I'll be showing you guys how we can have a good positioning for the dragons and elves, which is a very common build for most elf players if we don't go into the beast. So as you can see, it's hard to tell who's winning, but because we're sharing even damage, we have a greater chance to survive because we have evasion. And our Phantom Assassin, although she died quite quickly, she did give us a chance to distract the enemy backline, to give us a chance to focus on the front line. And yes, by some form of miracle, we actually won this round. When I say miracle, I meant evasion. Over here, you'll be round 31. This is the transition or the split position we do want for elves and with most classes, because we don't want to get hit by one particular AoE. Simply because being hit by one AoE can end the game for us or end the round for us, and we lose massively. Here we do split out because we want to avoid massive AoEs, but unfortunately they had the armors. So this is one of my late game positionings for elves. Over here we have the first tip for elf, is that I don't tend to roll for elves in a very early stage. What I tend to do with elves is I know one of my key piece of my key win condition is Lone Druid for the early game. If I do find my Lone Druid, I'm really happy. But once I find my Lone Druid, I also want the elves to be 2-star or 3-star with the druids. So what I tend to do, guys, is I tend to get to level 6 as quickly as I can. I don't tend to save before that, but when I find my Lone Druid, when I find my Templar Assassin, that's when I know I have a chance to save up. And that's when I know I can save up. But there's a downside, guys. We really also want the 2-star elves. So having a 1-star elf is really not beneficial for us, because although we have evasion, we have such a low health pool, and any units that does AoE to us will kill us right after. The second tip I want to share with you guys is that to be rolling for elves, there's 2 particular ways. One particular way is we can be rolling for elves at level 5 to roll for the druids, which is the Natural Protector, the Enchantress, and the Train Protector, the Furion, and Enchantress. Rolling over here has a very low chance of finding the Lone Druid, so I don't recommend rolling at level 6. I really do recommend rolling at level 7 if possible, or we can grow at level 6. This is because Lone Druid is such a key piece, and so is the Templar Assassin. But of course, in the off chance I do find my Lone Druid at level 5, I tend to stay on level 5 and I tend to roll for my Druids at level 5 because level 5 has the highest rate to find 2-star units. Let me share with this particular one. Another tip I want to share with you guys is being flexible with elves. We know that most of the elves tend to rely on druids to be 3-star to be really impactful and to be really hitting the power spikes. And to have the 3-star druids, we tend to need the 4 druids. But what happens when you just don't find the Lone Druid? What happens then? Well, we can be more flexible. We can look into finding 6 druids. That means we can find 3 of the 2-star druids. For example, over here, let's have a look. We rolled into a Treant Protector knowing that we don't find the Lone Druid. Yes, we might say that, hey, this is pretty trivial, but what I do tend to see is even with some famous streamers is they tend to wait for the Lone Druid instead of fusing this Treant Protector. What I feel that is, as elf player, you want to hit your power spike as early as you can to get your savings up as early as you can. Simply because having a 3-star on the table is so valuable. I am willing to spend an extra 2-star extra 2-star Treant Protector to fuse my 3-star Treant Protector as early as I can to get a little power up. Because I feel the later I wait, the more likely people are going to take the Lone Druid's way because I don't have the economy to level up, don't have the economy to be rolling. Because having a strong Treant Protector will mean that I can win my rounds more easily and have a chance not lose too hard. And this actually goes into my next tip as well, is that health is a resource. If you're an elf player and if you're losing, don't be that worried before round 26, actually before round 20. There's 2 reasons why. Because when you're losing, it's also possible for you to start a losing streak. We all heard, and we might have heard, the famous open fort strategy. This is when elf player actually intentionally lose in the early game to gain an advantage in the mid game. What they do is they trade their health in terms of economy and in terms of losing streak. So as they keep losing, they intentionally to keep losing, and this way gives them a healthy amount of gold right at the mid game when the elves have a power spike. Over here, I have had a semi-open fort. What that means is, over here, I tend to try to have a losing streak, and the moment I no longer have a losing streak, I'll be doing 2 things. I'll be spending my gold to level up to 7 most likely, and then I'll be spending my gold to roll for my 2-star elves. So over here, this is something I want to highlight. You really do want to adjust your health as a resource. The moment we stop losing is the moment we power up as elves. And notice over here, I found one of my 2-star, and I felt we should be strong enough because we have the 3-star Treant Protector, and by any chance if we lose this round, I'll be rolling for more units. Let's have a look. We did win quite convincingly. I skip a bit over here, and again, this is the highlight I want to highlight to you guys, is that when you're winning with elves, never let your guard down, because you most likely to be winning from level 16 to level 26. This should be your highlight, and you should really capitalize on this chance to be as strong as possible and to punish as many players as you can. Yes, you could be saving, you could be getting economy, but this is your condition to win. This is the stages that you eliminate most of the other players. So if you start saving now, you're actually missing a big window of punishment for the other players. Talking about health as a resource, I also want to highlight something that we can use HP as a key indicator. Here, let me go into the start of the game. When I say HP as an indicator for elves, I mean for the early game indication of HP. Over here, we have sitting on 91%, and this is round 7, and we have not been winning the games. We have been losing almost every game we come across. So what that means is HP is an indicator, is not the indicator for us to start going all in, but rather it's an indicator for us to go into keep losing, to go into open fort or semi-open fort. Open fort means you don't have any units on the board, you just lose outright. A semi-open fort is you only keep the units you wanted and you only keep the units you intend to use, but you also try to make for as many multiples of 10 in the early game, knowing that you'll be losing. So here are some of the good indicators I think we should look at in the early game before round 10. If HP is greater than 90%, you can consider that you want a losing streak, or you can fight back by rolling for Elves. When your HP is just greater than 80 or below 80%, it's probably safer if we went into a losing or semi-losing open fort. This is because currently you're losing a lot of HP and most likely you have been losing for 3 rounds. If you have any losing streak at 1 gold or 2 gold, maybe you should be considering reducing the units on the table or actually having less units or no units on the table if someone else is going open fort as well. Because right now it's more beneficial for you to exchange health into the economy, because I have tested many games. If I try to stay with my health or try to protect my health, what's going to happen is we don't hit the early game power spike for Elves fast enough and we never become relevant for the mid game. We tend to lose once we get to round 26 to 30. Another good HP indicator is at 60%. Let me show you guys over here. Here we're at 60%-ish, and over here, around 60% each HP is usually pretty comfortable for Elves if you have found your 6 Elves around round 16 to 17. This is when you can comfortably consider savings on gold, but if you haven't found Elves at this particular stage, and if you're on 60 or below %, you might want to roll into your savings to find all your 2-star Elves, or most of your 2-star Elves. Our HP is below 40%, it's when we really consider that how strong we're in this particular round. Because as an Elf player, even at this particular round, now it's round 31, when HP is below 45% or below 30%, it's when we know we can only lose 2 rounds. As Elf player or any other player, I would think in this particular stage of the game, at round 31 in the late game, I have 2 windows of surviving. That means if I want to survive, I really need to adjust my lineup. And for Elf player in the late game, adjusting lineup means putting a few relevant legendaries. Over here, I've selected the Lich and the Enigma. 2 reasons. One is that most players in this particular game tend to still stay in a formation that is still stack up, so Enigma can really punish them. The second thing is I see a lot of players having crucial units that requires to attack, and having a Lich really slows down the attack speed of the enemy, also does a good burst fire. Over here, although we lost, having Lich and Enigma giving us a higher chance of not losing too badly, because they were likely to be killing most of the enemies. And I have been waiting for this disruptor for a while. Finding the disruptor means we have a better way to initiate, to start the fight, and again, we have a better way to do nuke damage to punish the units in the backline. So usually when we are on an HP threshold below 40% or below 30%, we know we can only lose 1 more round massively. So that's when we really want to adjust the formation so we can kill as many as the enemy units so we don't lose too terribly too hard. So the idea is sometimes to be top 3 or top 2 is not that we try to not lose at all, but rather we try to minimize our losses. This was a massive loss, and I think most of you have seen why, and most of you have realized why I lost so badly. It's because I did not change my formation. I stayed in the protecting DK Dragon Knight formation for too long, and because I did not change that formation, we lost pretty badly. And knowing that, I instantly activate the last threshold I want to talk to you guys, is when HP is below 15%. When you're below 15%, you really want to try your best to be rolling, to be collecting units, and to change your positioning from the last round you just lost. So 2 things here. This is the last round for me if I lose again, most likely. So I want to change my positioning. I want to spend all my gold on rolling to find a crucial 2-star or 3-star. I want to spend my gold to level up. Usually I prefer to level up because it's a guaranteed benefit to have additional unit. But again, sometimes you just need that crucial 2-star Medusa or crucial 2-star DK, then you can be rolling if you want DK off. But usually I go for the safer route to be leveling up to have a few more units. And yes, it does look pretty close, and what I was hoping for, as you guys can see, is that we actually survived long enough to be second instead of third, because we saw the HP threshold, which is below 15%, we stood out to spend. I do recommend us spending right around 20% HP, but if it's below 15%, then it's the last call for us to be spending any race. And when we're playing Elves, we also start spending when we're below 20 or 15% massively. Thank you again, guys, for watching this Elf Spotlight. In this particular Spotlight, we have a few of the insights on Elves positioning, Elves rolling, and Elves collection of 6 Elves. I hope you enjoyed this particular highlight. Please let me know in the comments below which of the other race highlights you would like to see, or the class highlights. And also let me know, what do you guys think about the way we're presenting the race spotlights? What should we add and what should we take away? Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys again next time.